thank you very much for putting me on this program, even though I'm an economist. But I very much enjoyed the sessions so far, and I really do hope you will enjoy what I will talk about today. So this is a labor market session. I will focus on one specific aspect of inequalities in the labor market, and these are gender inequalities. So I will talk about gender inequalities in the context of Germany. So in Germany, women currently earn 18% less per hour than men. But that's something you observe in pretty much every country. In fact, if you look at weekly earnings or monthly earnings, the difference between men and women will widen because women work fewer hours than men. Now, research has also shown that these earnings gaps between men and women, they really start opening up upon the first birth of the child. So fathers just behave differently than from mothers. So fathers' careers just continue as before birth. Mothers' careers, on the other hand, are very much disrupted or interrupted. So what we try to understand in this paper is the role of social or gender norms, or perhaps you can also call it culture. So may I introduce here two women. We first have Bärbel. Bärbel is from Bonn. Bonn is a city in West Germany. And we also have Lena. Lena was born and grew up in Leipzig. Leipzig is a city in East Germany. Now, so both Bärbel and Lena, they graduated from high school in 1994. So then they go to university. Suppose they now work in the same occupation. They have very similar occupations, so the same occupations, similar careers. And they both give birth to their first child in 2003. So what happens then? Well, Lena, suppose she's a typical East German woman, well, then she will stay at home for an extended period of time, typically 1 year. But after 1 year, she will return to the labor market and work full-time. When her child is 6 years old, on average, these East German women, they earn 70% of their pre-birth income. So now you may think 70%, that's pretty bad, but it is actually a lot worse if we look at the West German women. So Bärbel from Bonn, from West Germany, she will stay at home, but typically much, much longer, 3 years or even longer. And once she returns, chances are very high that she works part-time. And when her child is 6 years old, on average, she only has recovered 45% of her pre-birth income. So what I've described here, these are actually typical differences between women in East Germany and West Germany, even today. So where is this coming from? So why are these women behaving so differently? Well, Lena in Leipzig, she grew up in a much more gender egalitarian culture. Bärbel, on the other hand, grew up in a much more gender traditional culture. So East Germany, East Germany, as a communist country, propagated gender equality. And in fact, labor force participation rates in East Germany in the 1980s were very, very high. According to the statistics that I know, it was the highest in the world. Today I've learned that in China, labor force participation rates might have been even higher. But the important difference is in West Germany, much more propagated a more traditional role model, where the father is the breadwinner and the mother stays at home to take care of the children and the family. So what we then aim to understand is, well, first we have childhood socialization. So women in East and West Germany who give birth around 2003, they grew up, they were raised in very different environments. But then also the current social and institutional environment is also different. So, for instance, childcare still tends to be much more widely available in East Germany than in West Germany. So now both the childhood socialization and the current environment are likely to have an impact on maternal labor supply. So the decisions mothers make after they've given birth when to return to the labor market. So what we aim to do in this research is to understand, well, which factor is possibly more important, the current environment or the childhood socialization? And are there perhaps also interactions between these two? So how do we do this? Well, here we leverage the fact that Germany was separated after World War II, but then reunited in 1990. And upon reunification, these two different cultures came together, in large part because of migration. So we had East Germans migrating to West Germany on the one hand, but we also had West Germans migrating to East Germany on the other hand. And now there's exchange between these two different cultures, the way men and women were brought up. So here's actually an advertisement from West Germany referring to from the 1960s. So this is an advertisement for a baking product. Yeah, so you see the father here in this suit, presumably just coming home from work. You have the mother wearing the suit, welcoming the father with the cake in her hand. So you can see very much the traditional male breadwinner model. Contrast this with an advertisement that appeared in East Germany around the same time. Here actually you see a little girl who is preparing a meal. So this is an advertisement for a ready meal product, like a soup that is easy to cook. And what the caption at the bottom of the advertisement says is, so Mutti, so East Germans call their mother Mutti, she will be back in 10 minutes. Yeah, so now the daughter is getting the meal ready. You probably noticed it's the daughter who's preparing the meal. It's not the son. And that is not an accident. So East Germany implemented quite a few policies to encourage to work women in the labor market, participate in the labor market. They certainly did not do much at all to encourage men to do more at home. Yeah, so Mary, you used this concept of the dual earner, dual carer society. East Germany probably was much more a dual earner, single carer or state carer society. The state played a very important role because it did provide childcare, very long hours, but also free. So here are actually some interesting statistics from the European Value Survey. This data set has actually come up already, I think this is the third time it has come up today. It's a very interesting survey also for economists. So here I'm using one particular question. Do you agree that a preschool child suffers when their mother works? So in West Germany, it turns out that 57% agree with this statement. This is in 2008. And if you split this up, men versus women, yes, there are more men who agree with this statement. There are also a lot of women who agree with this statement. In East Germany, 31% agree with this statement. So that's a lot lower. The United States so East Germany it's similar to the United States or the United Kingdom, but not quite as egalitarian as Sweden or Denmark would be. Okay, so what I now want to show you is some evidence that West Germans appear to have learned from East Germans, but not the other way around. So what we now do, consider So suppose Lena, so she grew up, she was born and she grew up in Leipzig in East Germany, but now she has migrated to the West and she has her first child in West Germany. And now we compare Lena, so we compare these East German migrants with other women in West Germany, and they work in the same workplace, same occupation, same age, same education. They had very similar career paths before giving birth. So now we ask, well, these East German migrants, the West German stayers, how do they behave differently after giving birth? Well, what we find is that 4 years after childbirth, East Germans are actually 8 percentage points more likely to work than their otherwise very similar West German counterparts. So that's actually quite a large effect. That's a larger effect than what you would get from university education. So this suggests that growing up in this more gender egalitarian childhood culture has a persistent effect on maternal labor supply. Because what is really different here between these East German migrants and the West Germans, they are in the same firm, the same environment, right? But their childhood, the way they grew up, was different. So now we can do it the other way around. We can look at Bärbel, who grew up in West Germany, now moves to East Germany, and she has her first child in East Germany. The same exercise, so we compare these West German migrants with East German stayers in the same firm, same occupation, very similar career trajectory up until they gave birth. What happens after giving birth? It turns out that these West German migrants behave very, very similarly to their East German colleagues. Yeah, so here, that's contrary to what we found for the East German migrants. So this more traditional, gender traditional culture does not seem to be as persistent. Here we see much more of an adjustment. And now you can ask yourself, well, what's causing this adjustment? Here you can tell two different stories. So one story would be, well, this could be just because the environment in East Germany is much more conducive to working when children are young. For example, because childcare is much more easily available. It could be maybe the work in East Germany is organized such that it's easier to combine family and work because working hours are lower. So that is one story. An alternative story is that these West Germans actually change their beliefs and attitudes, what it means to be a good mother. So they could actually learn from their East German colleagues. So they see, well, in East Germany, there are all these children around who were brought up by working mothers. These children seemed to turn out, they seem to be absolutely fine. So they may change their own beliefs. So what I'm going to show you next is some evidence that this cultural adoption, this updating of beliefs, might have taken place. At least it's consistent with this idea. So what we do next is, so consider again Bärbel, who grew up in West Germany. She moved to East Germany. She spends 2-3 years in East Germany, so she observes firsthand the more gender egalitarian culture in East Germany. But then she goes back to West Germany, and she has her first child back in the more traditional, gender traditional environment. So we compare these return migrants with the West Germans who've always been in West Germany, so who did not have this first-hand exposure to the more gender egalitarian culture. So now notice Bärbel is back in the more conservative environment. Yeah? So if we still see differences here in the labor supply behavior between these return migrants and those who always stayed behind, Well, that can't be because childcare in East Germany is more easily available. So a more natural explanation is that really these return migrants, that they updated their attitudes, they took something with themselves that stays with them. And indeed we find that 4 years after childbirth, these West German return migrants are 4 percentage points more likely to be employed than the West German stayers. Yeah, so the effect is not quite as large as for the East Germans who were socialized in East Germany. There the effect was 8 percentage points, but the effect is definitely there. I do think I'm running out of time. So to summarize what we've done here, so first of all, there are still persistent differences in labor supply of mothers in East and West Germany. But at the same time, it does look like that West Germans have learned from East Germans and adapt to the East German culture, but East Germans do so much, much less. And exposure to this more gender egalitarian culture, that could potentially bring about cultural change. Thank you.